morning. Welcome to Let's Get Growing. It's a beautiful morning, first day of autumn. We're out here in where we had our potscaping set up for this year. And because we're getting into that fall season, it's time to start thinking about what we're going to keep, what we're not going to keep, and what to do with that stuff. You know, how do we keep it indoors over the winter? So we talked a little bit earlier in another show about taking cuttings from things like coleus and verbenas and all that stuff that you can just keep over as rooted cuttings for the winter. But, you know, there's been a big trend over the last few years into using sort of big, cool, fast-growing tropical plants in the potscape and in containers, and sort of the alocasias and the colocasias have been, you know, front and center in that trend of cool tropicals. But that you could, you know, buy a new 10-inch pot of an alocasia in the spring. With the cost, you know, you want to save them. What do you do to save them, bring them in? So really just quickly at a couple of alocasias that we've had out in the pots for the summer. One plant, this one on my left, is Dark Star. It's a beautiful one, upright green leaves, black stems, really, really showy. So, you know, when you get a really cool one like that, you're really inclined to, you know, do what you can to keep it in and keep it over the winter. The other one we have is a very old pot of colocasia or alocasia. I forget which one that one is now. It's just sort of the common upright alocasia, macrorrhiza. It gets really big, it gets really tall. This one didn't get that tall this year because it's getting very congested in the pot. It's in need of some propagation work. So I'm going to show you what to do there as well. But to keep them indoors, you know, you might be inclined to just take this plant just like this and bring it inside for the winter. It's a little dry at the moment, and keep it for the winter. But you can run into problems with the alocasias over the winter, and the biggest one is spider mites. So, you know, we've got all these leaves that have been outside all summer. They don't look to be in too bad a shape, but if you look around at the bottom, you might find that they probably have a little bit of spider mite damage. In any rate, spider mites love the dry environment of our houses. So when I've got a plant in this situation, what I will usually do with it to bring it in, can you see the bottom of it, Laura, from there?
Yep.
What I'll usually do to bring it in is remove a lot of these leaves while it's still outside. So you can see we've got, you know, a good trunk built up on this guy. It'll need a bigger pot, but that could wait till spring now. But we'll get rid of some of that old dead leaf, and you can see the stump here. It's growing a new little pup there. This is going to be a good big plant for next year. But bringing it in, we want to reduce most of the leaves off, and just what we'll do with that is we'll just get into the base of the leaves. And they cut away really easily. They're very fleshy, almost like banana leaves, very full of just air pockets and things. So they're easy to get rid of. And we really don't want to bring them all in, because we want to keep the bug population down. So we can just go in and just cut those down. Easy. And we'll take it right down to just the first new leaf. Even the little pup down here, I'm going to take most of that off. Any weeds, of course, don't bring the weeds in. Weeds are actually where most of your pests will hide. I think those little oxalis looks like they were covered in some spider mite damage. So this is how I bring this plant in for the winter. I'll allow this leaf to stay because I'm going to keep growing it as an indoor plant for the winter. And you can really grow these plants very well indoors. They're happy indoors. They don't mind the lower light. And they're easy to manage as an indoor plant. They'll keep growing, they'll get new leaves, but starting off with a good plant that's not going to have any bugs on it is really the way to go. Now your other option, if you don't have space to keep them growing, is to take a big plant like this guy, bring him over, is really in need of some work. You can see that over time, these alocasias build up quite a trunk. You can see it here. They really build up quite a trunk, so you have that you could deal with. And what you could do with these, I will keep this plant over because I've got the space for it. But what you could do if you don't have the space for it is you could take stem cuttings off these things and take these pieces of trunk off and just store them over the winter. Now, just as it happened, as I was moving it, this one broke off. So you can see that we really have a complete plant here. There are a few roots there. This part's a little mushy, so I'll probably trim that right off. I might need bigger snips, but these might be okay. Trim that right off. Make sure there's no mold in here, no rot. Take all this, just trim this off. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take and cut that right off. You can actually store that away for the winter, just like it was a dahlia or a canna lily, and reroot this stump basically again. If you go and buy these alocasias in the garden center, and the Alocasia macrorhiza is usually always available. It's called the upright elephant ears. This is what you buy. You buy a hunk of stem. Now what's interesting with it is you can just pot that up and this will grow and it'll make a big plant the first season. If you're into propagation and you want to make a lot of plants, you can look at these stems, and as you look down the stem, I'm just going to peel some of this off. You know, let's say you want to do a pot scaping and you want to have, 3 or 4 of these, but you only have the one root. If you look down the stem of this well, not really a stem. If you look down this trunk here, you'll see that all along here are little buds, little bumps right here. There's another one right here, another one here, and these cover these things. So you could actually take this piece, and if you wanted to, you could cut this into 3 or 4 pieces, and you could actually root up 3 or 4 whole separate plants with just this trunk. I don't have a knife here with me, so I'm not going to cut it right apart, but I'm just going to peel some of this back. This is just all old leaves. And as we peel it back, and even right near the top, you'll see that we have a whole little ring of new little baby plantlets right here. There's another one here. There's more on this side. These will all turn into new full shoots. So you could actually take this and cut this. You might cut it here, you could cut it again here, and all 3 of these pieces will sprout and grow. Now, if I was going to do that, I'd probably be inclined to start them quite early in the house in the winter and give them a good long stretch of really good warmth and sunlight indoors. to get them to grow. But if you're just going to keep it over to use it again for next spring, take a chunk like that, put it away with your cannas and your dahlias, and then restart it late winter, pot it up, soil about here maybe, pot it up, put it in a nice warm spot indoors. It'll resprout and grow exceptionally fast. And that works with all of these big alocasias. This Dark Star, you see how it's built up this same trunk? You could do the exact same with this. It's just like saving a coconut. You could save that stump right there. Now, I don't think I have colocasia outside. Turn and look at a pretty garden shot, Laura, for a second, and I'm going to go and just grab a colocasia, and we're going to talk about those. I'll be right back.
There's a big one back there. Some small ones behind him there where he was standing. Not going to show the pretty garden because he has a bunch of debris that needs to be discarded. But starting to get everything ready to come in for the winter. Hard to believe that we're already there. Time really does fly. Jeff will be right back out. Here he comes.
All right, we're back. That was quick. So we're here with the colocasias. Now, the colocasias, very similar to the alocasias. Get back up a little bit. Colocasias, very similar to the alocasias. And sometimes they're really hard to tell them apart. So this is a colocasia redemption. Normally with the colocasias and the alocasias, just a couple of quick ideas that might help you a little bit. Colocasias usually face down like this. The leaf is attached to the stem somewhere in the center. See how there's that big space there? Alocasias, the leaves are often upright, and the leaf petiole attaches right at the base of the leaf. So, if you see that, you think alocasia right away. If you see this structure like this, you think colocasia. It's not a perfect science, but it's pretty close. Colocasia is exactly the same. Now, I'm not going to fuss with this one. This is Redemption, one of the newest ones available, and you're going to start seeing this available next year. Stunning. Look at the color of this. This is just amazing. The dark the dark black leaf with that wine-colored center is really stunning. Now, I'd be inclined, because I just got this, to keep this growing as a house plant. I will reduce the leaves like we did with the alocasia. You can see it's got a good trunk system built up here, but I'd be just as happy to let this keep growing and see if I can get a lot more of these young pups over the winter. But again, if you want to keep a colocasia over, if it has formed a good tuber, you can keep the tuber over again, just like your cannas and your dahlias. This is a Colocasia esculentia Jack's Giant. It was just sitting in a 4-inch pot for the summer, so I didn't do much with it. But you can see that if I peel this back, again, these old leaf bases, just like the alocasia, we've got all sorts of little buds here. And all these little buds are going to make new plants. These are new bulbs starting here. These will all sprout and make new plants as well. So you could actually just take this and store that over the winter if your colocasias have built you up a decent tuber. Anything smaller than this, I probably wouldn't try. I'd probably try to keep it growing. But this one is firm. It's healthy. Looks good. This should be fine to put away for the winter and then start again next spring. So you can do that. You just need to watch your colocasias. Make sure you've got tubers big enough before you decide to cut them back and store them dry. But you absolutely can. In this case, so there's one I would probably store dry. This one here that's growing but is no fully developed tuber on there. This one I would keep growing. If I cut this back and dried it out, I'd likely have it dry out completely over the winter because there's not enough storage there to keep it going. So those are your options for your colocages and your allocages for the winter. Going to look at one more big guy here.
What are the ideal growing conditions for colocages indoors?
The nice thing about colocages and the allocages is they like the indoor temperatures. Our indoor room temperatures are perfect for colocages and allocages. You just want to have a decent amount of light. Now, just to get them to survive, I certainly know people that have kept allocages in living room corners away from windows for a long, long time, and they've done fine. They are jungle plants. They will take low light conditions. But, to get optimum, these guys have been sitting out in the full sun all year. So optimum, lots of light, but not a necessity. I'm going to turn over here to the big guy here. This is our Brugmansia. This is Kongzilla, or Kongmansia, sorry. It has been absolutely spectacular this year. Just going to get rid of this alocasia leaf. We don't need that. Fantastic plants, Brugmansias. They're lots of fun. But what do we do with them in the winter? It's always a challenge. If you've got room, I would be inclined to keep the plants big and just put them away in the basement. You can keep them dormant. They don't have to be kept growing. And what we do with that is when we bring these in, we just literally trim off all the leaves. We don't allow any leaves to come in because Brugmansias are quite the whitefly and spider mite lover. So we'll just take off all these leaves, but leave the structure there. And then keep it sort of dry over the winter, watering it very, very rarely, and that will keep it alive but not growing. That way they don't need a lot of light, they don't need a lot of care, and then they're fine. If you don't have that kind of room, you could literally take a piece off this tree that is a foot long and root it like a cutting. Very, very easy. So think about that. They will grow along fast enough. But what I'm finding is, you can get a good growth and bloom the first year from those cuttings. But really, if you leave your plants and get structure of all these small twiggy branches, this is where you get masses of flowers forming. So if you can leave a good structural stem with some of these twiggy branches, they'll love it and be blooming like crazy for you for the winter. So keep that in mind if you want to bring these big Brugmansias in. They're fantastic plants. We're building up quite a collection now, because we love them. We got any questions today, Laura?
A couple of questions. Mary would like to know, what should she do to protect her spring snowdrops that have emerged again? They're about 4 inches above the ground.
If you've got bulbs coming up, and there are a few bulbs that will do that, Muscari come up in the fall. We have had snowdrops blooming in November for us sometimes. We don't do anything. There's no need to do any care. Those plants are tough. Just leave them alone.
Is it too late to relocate shade, part sun, or sun perennials today? I need to decrease some overcrowding.
No, we are in the best time of the year for digging, dividing, splitting, moving perennials. You've still got a good month or so. Get them moved now, get them watered in, get them settled in. They'll get this fall, so in case they heave a bit in this over the winter, the roots will still be covered. Just pile some leaves over them, and they'll be fine. This is a great time to do all that stuff.
All right.
All right. If that's our questions for today, we'll wrap it up. Get out there, get gardening. There's still lots of gardening season left, and we'll see you next time on Let's Get Growing.